Hi, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Thanks for joining us today, episode 132, as we bring you information and a teaching seminar about bat and hand path, the difference, the similarities. We'll talk about it all today. We've got a lot to get to, so let me bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, and co host, Jake Epstein,
Hello, Jim. Excited to talk about this topic today.
in his monotone voice. Not much excitement to that.
He's not the best color man in the business for nothing.
No, he isn't. We've got, speaking of which, spring training, Major League Spring Training is back. Last weekend, I had a chance to watch some college softball. That was a lot of fun. Those girls are very competitive, very, very athletic. I've had a chance to watch some college baseball as well. There's a kid from Mississippi State, a freshman, who swung, and his swing looks like Tim Anderson. He is a great young athlete. He's only hitting 238 right now from Mississippi State. I forget his name, but he's a great athlete. And I think that kid's going to be a draft pick. He's got a great swing. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that, I'm sure, sometime down the line. So be sure to subscribe to the show, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, and watch the show on YouTube, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. And again, today we're talking about bat and hand path. And through everything, I think it's one of the more overlooked mechanical fallacies, and at times a fallacy, but other times a mechanical, what do you want to call it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just
Mechanical
overlooked.
factor. At times those two, bat and hand path, they could be overlooked at times.
Yeah, well, I think that, it depends who you're talking about. Typically major leaguers talk a lot about their hand path and they think a lot
Mhm.
about their hand path. I think at the guru stage of hitting coaches and instructors, I think people neglect it a little bit and they talk more about body and loading and getting in the hip and uncoiling and separation and yada 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 that they think will just make the hands work the right way. Sometimes it does help the hands, but the hands are definitely the most overlooked part of the swing, probably the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
compared to, if you go back to the, you know, even pre 2010, people, that's all they talked about, major leaguers: my hands, my hands, my hands, my hands, my hands. There was the old knob to the ball, there was throw your hands at the ball, there was throw the barrel, all those sayings that players and coaches used. They really aren't used as much anymore. I still use quite a bit of them in certain situations with players, but yeah, if you have a bad hand path, it really doesn't matter how hard you're swinging. It just doesn't. You're not going to be successful. You're not going to be consistent enough to make a team. You can only swing and miss so many times.
Right.
I remember I have a buddy that coaches a high school team here in Colorado, a good one too. And there was a facility in town that's not around anymore, but they were, big into huge kind of Donaldson stuff, right? Big leg kicks, turn the barrel behind you. That was kind of their thing. And they took these just massive BP swings and these massive on deck circle swings. And he's like, can someone just square up one ball in a game? He's like, we played 6 games and I got 8 players that work with the same, coach or facility, and none of them have like hit a barrel yet. He said they look good, they look mean, they look big and strong in the on deck circle, but they just can't do it in a game. And so that's where hand path comes in. If you neglect hand path, then you're just not going to find any barrels. And I think that's why some organizations, they're drafting guys that have high barrel rates, that have, maybe their launch angle isn't as high, maybe they don't hit a ton of home runs in high school and college, but they are finding barrels. Because once you do that, once your hand path is good, then you can get crazy with the lower body if you want to. And now all of a sudden, maybe the ball goes a little bit further or it goes on a different trajectory, but we still have that good hand path where our barrel is going to be in the zone for a decent amount of time.
Right. By the way, his name, the kid I was speaking about, Dakota Jordan, Mississippi State, class of 2022. This is his first year, freshman. Great swing.
Yeah.
I suggest everybody go check him out on YouTube. He had a home run the other day. That was a man swing. That wasn't a boy swing. That was a man swing. Went a long way too. Some people are saying that the ball hasn't even landed yet. Jeff McNeil, as we're into Major League Spring Training, and we're going to get to the pitch clock here in just a second. But Jeff McNeil, he was being interviewed by MLB Network, and he said this in regards to his approach. Let me find it here. His offseason hitting plan, I guess. He talked about his offseason hitting plan. He said this, quote, that he didn't do much during the offseason and went in back to the basics in the last 2 off seasons. So he went back to the highlight there. Keywords. He went back to basics, and he's turned out. And by the way, we're doing a Jeff McNeil hitting breakdown later in the year, but it turns out, as it were, for Jeff McNeil, the guy who chokes up on the bat, that going back to the basics, going back to simplicity, worked out for him last year. Of course, hit what 325 was it?
Yeah.
Led the National League in batting average. So things are working well for Jeff McNeil. Good approach,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah. Good for him. We'll have to dive into that a little more, see if we can get some more out of him.
That's all you got for me on Jeff McNeil?
I don't think there's a knob on his bat.
He chokes up very high on the bat.
He does.
Strikes. I mean, he's really up there.
He's a guy that fits in. Is that what you want to hear? You know, you surround guys like McNeil who have a high on base percentage and they get on base and they're gritty, and you surround them by, you know, Alonsos and Martes and guys that can hit the ball out of the park, and that's a good combination. We talked about that with the Yankees last year. They just had guys that could hit the ball out of the park, and when those guys, you know, those are peaks and valleys guys. When they go into slumps, they're, you know, 20 at bats. They're not like 4 at bats. And when everybody goes into a slump, or they're not seeing the ball at the same time, or the other team has a good plan to pitch against them and they're hitting their spots, they're going to fail. So when you can mix in guys like McNeil, doesn't mean you want 9 of them in there, but if you, well, it wouldn't be bad. You'd probably still score a lot of runs if everybody's getting on base that much. But you know, if you can sandwich those guys in between your high slugging guys, that's usually going to lead to a pretty good offense.
I would agree. Yeah, Mets offense is going to be pretty good this year, that's for sure. I think they've opened up as World Series favorites going in to spring training here in 2023. So we'll see. Poor Phillies. You know, they went to the World Series last year. They're still projected to finish 3rd in the National League East. They can't get by that number 2 spot. They can't get by the number 3 spot. Last year, they were projected to finish 3rd. They did. And they can't finish past the Braves.
Yeah.
Mets and Braves right now.
Underdogs, that fits the Phillies.
It does, doesn't it? All right, so you want to get to the pitch clock first, or do you want to get to our listener question, a follow-up from last week? I'll let you choose.
Let's go with the pitch clock.
Okay. You seem excited. I see the excitement in your eyes. I think talking about the pitch clock.
I think there needs to be some feel, some umpire feel, some situational awareness on, you know, when to bust guys. There was a college game. Was it an LSU game? Gosh darn, I can't remember yesterday. But the game ended. The game had the 3rd out in the 9th inning with runners on ended because of the batter. And he was in the box at the time. So I don't know if he maybe stepped out a second before or what, but he was actually in the box. The umpire called the game, said that's all she wrote. And I think there needs to be a little bit of discretion and feel when we're using that. I get it, and we're in the middle of the game or early in the game, and you're trying to, you know, get some pace set up. But to do something like that in the later innings is really tough on players. Now, I haven't seen a lot in spring training yet, so I'm going to let you kind of jump on board with that one because I didn't see that yesterday.
Yeah, so as we record this on Saturday, February 25th, there was a game between, I forget who it was, but the Padres were in it. Manny Machado was called for an automatic strike was called because he didn't get back into the box in time and the pitch clock ran out. And then I was watching Colton Wong lead things off yesterday, and Martinez, the pitcher, who was it? Right-handed pitcher, Martinez, Nick Martinez, I think, right? He was just pumping him in there. Boom, 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 boom. And the game was very quick and it was a fast pace. And I don't know. I was thinking about this, and I've advocated at the minor league level to have the ghost runner at second base. I do at the major league level, by the way. And a lot of people will scoff at that. I think it's a great rule because it gets the game done. You know, I don't want to see, you know, hey, we go to the bottom of the 18th inning. Okay, great. Right. Cool. I'm going to bed. But I'll say this with the pitch clock, I advocated for the minor leagues. I don't really advocate it much for the major leagues. It's going to take some adjustment for hitters. I think that there will be some pushback, especially with veteran hitters who've got these big contracts. They're used to doing it one way. The pitch clock, I think, is going to have to be in a real adjustment here. I don't really believe, by the way, the pitch clock is going to make the game faster and it's going to make the game better. It makes the game faster at the minor league levels because pitchers, as with their approach, they're taught that in player development. Hey, let's go, get the ball back, go quick, don't overthink this thing. because again, it's in a way you're trying to speed up the game to slow the game down for when those guys get to the major league level when they're on the mound, if that
Right.
makes any sense.
Right.
If it doesn't make sense, email me and I'll explain it better. jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. Notwithstanding, when it comes to the major league level, I don't think the pitch clock is going to make the game much better. And I think that a lot of players, especially the veterans, are going to really push back, if not in season, certainly after the season. And there's going to be some adjustments. 15 seconds is a little too short for me. If it was 25 seconds, okay. 15 seconds, though, there's going to be pushback.
Yeah, well, I think it's like anything else. It's generational. So the
Right.
guys that are at the big leagues now, at least the guys that have been in the big leagues probably for 5 years, they've had their routines forever.
Yeah.
You can't throw. It's like putting a pitch clock on or a putt clock on a PGA Tour player when they get to the green. I mean, if you've ever gone to a tournament or in person, geez, they take forever on the greens. Like they are looking at so many different angles. So if you put a pitch clock on them and they've been doing this same routine for the last 10 years, they're going to blow up. The same is true here. So what you're saying, Jim, about keeping it in the minor league system and really training that generation to get going a little bit faster, totally fine. They're younger, they have time to learn, and then when they get to the big league level, they won't have these drawn out routines where they step out of the box and fix their batting gloves and tap their helmet and their pine tar and all this kind of stuff. It'll change automatically, but just to throw that rule in there, that's going to create some issues. And sometimes as a hitter, this pitcher's rolling. I got to get him out of his routine. That's part of the gamesmanship. Like
Right.
this guy's just carving everybody up. I need to step out. I need to take a break. I need to, mess with his rhythm a little bit on the mound because he's just dealing. And that's why pitchers want to go fast because
Right.
they get into a rhythm of just pumping strikes. Their mechanics are locked in. But as soon as you create chaos, right, you get a guy on base. Now he's got to go out of the stretch. Then some different things can happen. We can get to that hitter or get to that pitcher. So, yeah, you got to be able to slow that pitcher down at some point. So I'll look more into it. I haven't yet. I don't know how chaotic it was, yesterday and the
It
day
was
before in
pretty.
those games, but it sounds
It was
pretty
pretty
bad.
good. Yeah, yeah. And I've said again with the extra innings runner, ghost runner
Yeah.
rule. I actually do think that makes look. It's not traditional. I get it, but it makes the game. Again, I don't feel like watching the game going into 15. I don't even
No.
feel like watching a game going into 13, 12, 13 innings. I don't have the time. And quite
Call it a
frankly,
tie after 10 or 11 innings. How about
when
that?
there's a game going into 13 innings in May, I don't care at that point. Right? I really
Yeah.
don't. The only time I care is in September. So I think that, and especially with the minor league level too, with so many logistics, I like the idea of the extra innings rule. Actually,
Yeah.
I like the idea of the pitch clock. Extra minor league games don't need to be going what 3+ hours.
Right.
Major League
There's no
Baseball,
TV breaks and
exactly, and with Major League Baseball, there's something inorganic about this new pitch clock. There's going to have to be some adjustments that will be made. I think,
yeah,
in my opinion, but.
we'll
Well,
find
we'll
out.
see. They've got spring training to work it all out. It's amazing how Major League Baseball always goes like, or just the game in general goes one way or the other way. There's no middle ground in between. Like the NFL always finds in college football, they always find that middle ground when they're
Mhm.
changing their rules to make the game better and make it a better product. But with baseball, it's like, okay, we're going to implement a pitch clock and we're going to do 15 seconds.
Right.
Okay, why not 25? Nope, we're doing 15. Always. We're going to make the bases bigger. Well, why? Well, we're going to make them bigger. Okay,
Yep.
cool. Whatever. Yeah, we'll
Is
see how that
first
goes.
base 3 inches closer to home?
Might be because it's bigger now. Might be, yeah.
I know they're closer between the bases, so they're 3 inches closer and then 6 inches closer between first and second and third. Yeah, I think that's
Hmm.
right.
Hey, your boy Sal Frelick, I tweeted this at you at
Mhm.
Jim Tara on Twitter, at Epstein Hitting on Twitter, and both in Twitter and Instagram. Sal Frelick, the Brewers, your organization, hoping that playing for Team Italy will get him going. And I'm telling you right now, we will see Sal Frelick in the big leagues this year.
I hope so.
February 25th, 2023. As we record this episode comes out on February 27th, 2023. Mark it, book it, whatever you have to do. James Anthony Tarabokia has said at Jim Tara on both Twitter and Instagram, Sal Frelick will be a big leaguer.
It was funny. I was looking at there was one guy in the draft I liked, that 2020 draft, so the year before Frelick. That was my favorite hitter in the draft. It was Crow Armstrong out of Los Angeles, out of the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who took him in the draft. but I wanted to look it up because he was drafted 19th, and so I went and I was trying to figure out where did the Brewers. I know they got Garrett Mitchell. You know, where did we end up picking? And we picked 20th, and Armstrong was the 19th pick. And I would have loved to be in that boardroom to see between those two guys what their thought process was if they were going with a high school guy. I mean, that guy's tearing up the minor leagues. I think he's hit like over 320 the last 3 years in the minor leagues, and he's
Career
probably
318 hitter. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, how old is he? 20, 21?
He's 20 years old. Mets first
20 years old.
rounder.
Like
Yep.
I remember
19th overall.
seeing it and talking to a couple other people and just saying that dude can. Who's he with? Who drafted him?
Mets.
Oh,
6'1",
did they
185.
did they draft him or was he traded? I feel like he may
No,
have
they
been.
drafted him. First round, 19th overall.
Okay, and he's still with the Mets.
Yes.
Well, that was a pretty good pick for them.
No doubt. No doubt.
Anyway, that was a good draft for a lot of teams, and then especially the Brewers because Mitchell, if he pans out, and then Frelick, they're both kind of similar high contact guys that are going to grow into some power.
Mhm.
Especially Mitchell, he's a big guy. Anyway, it'll be fun to see. Fun to see how that class, because I remember going through all that list, and there were some real hitters in that draft. So it'll be fun to see them. Maybe next 2 years they should start popping up in the big league level. We'll see who pans out.
So you think Sal Frelick, he'll grow into power? No, right?
I don't know. He'll grow into more power, but I don't think that's not gonna be his role. You know, I think Mitchell's a bigger guy. You know, Mitchell's
Yes.
6'3", 220 or something, 215. Frelick doesn't have that frame, but I think Frelick will be a guy that hits 15 home runs. I think he could
That's
be
fair.
a 15 to 20 home run guy, above 300 hitter, play great defense, steal some bags.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you? Oh, okay. So again, why does power when they get to the major leagues,
Yeah,
these players, why does two things? Why does
yeah,
I'll ask that other one in a second. Why does
yeah.
their power go up?
That's just a great
People
question.
people
Yeah,
always wonder that, and they always
because I
ask me,
said
and I
that
say, well,
right. Then
listen to the.
he'll grow
Go
into
ahead.
power. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, well, why doesn't he grow into power now? Usually when you're surrounded, my dad used to say this all the time, and he used Charlie Blackmon as an example here in Colorado. It's like you have
Mhm.
these guys that are really good hitters in Double A and Triple A. They come to the big leagues, and then they struggle, and then they get sent down, and then they come back up again, and they do a little bit better, and then they send them back down, and then they come up the third time, and they're like, okay, I belong here. And then once they belong here, they're surrounded by experience. They're surrounded by big leaguers who have been here for a while. So in Blackman's case, he had like Todd Helton, you know, left-handed power hitter that was here, high average guy too. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden you see their swings start to morph a little bit. So they're usually, you know, higher contact guys in the minor leagues. They're hitting, you know, 300 to get brought up for the most part. They're hitting some doubles. You know, you don't hear of 40 home run minor leaguers.
No, if you do, they're in the major leagues.
Yeah, but you really don't. I mean, you
Right.
have. I mean, who was the kid that was played at Arizona State and the Tigers drafted him #1 overall? He was a first baseman, and I was
Oh,
like,
Spencer
wow.
Torkelson. We did a hitting
Yeah,
breakdown on him.
Torkelson, right? And it's like, man, this guy better be able to absolutely mash to be a 1-1 as a first baseman, you know.
Right.
And I don't think he's had quite the success. I'm not 100% sure on this. You can look it up, but as some of these other guys that have come through the minor league system, you know, he was a big home run hit, 20-something home runs in college. So when these guys get to the big leagues, they have the ham path and they have the swing path to find barrels, which we're going to talk about today. But then
Sure.
they start figuring out what part of the ball to hit. They start figuring out how to get into their legs a little bit more. They start to figure out maybe they're like the Justin Turner. Well, I'm trying to hit the ball out in front more, but I'm not going to top it. I'm going to
Mhm.
think bottom half of the ball and out in front. And they have the swing plane to do it. If you don't have the swing plane to do it, then you will struggle with those adjustments. So that in a combination of the balls are harder, the bats are harder,
You know what? You laugh, and
and the stadiums are
but
smaller.
you're
They
right.
really are.
You laugh about the ball being harder, but that is
Yeah,
a true
it
factor
is.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah,
The balls are different at the minor league level than they are at
correct.
the major league level. The balls are different in college than they are at the minor league level.
Yes,
The
they are.
seams and there's not the seams are not the same. I like the big league and the professional ball seams rather than.
No, the college seams are small now. So they made that
Oh, they're
change
smaller
about,
now?
yeah,
Okay, I
they're
didn't know
flat
that.
seam
Yeah.
now. They made that
Alright.
change about, geez, I don't know, 4 years ago.
Well, they used to be very big and
They
bulky.
used to be huge. So the
Yeah.
ball flies a little bit more. But in terms of, so we've tested all these balls. You know, we've tested like a college ball. So if somebody hits a college ball 90,
Yeah.
that same person will hit a minor league ball 92, 93, and a major
Mhm.
league ball will be 95, 96. So you're looking
Yeah.
at 5 to 6 miles an hour more of exit velocity just in a ball. Plus, most college stadiums are bigger than a lot of major league stadiums these days.
Yeah.
They really are. Like, if you look at Pittsburgh, you look at Philadelphia, you look at Houston, like those parks versus like Rice, or Texas A, or
Yankee
Cal
Stadium
State
too.
Fullerton. I'm thinking Stanford,
Yeah.
Washington. These the ball travels so much better in major league parks, and they are a little smaller. That guys are going to hit a few more home runs just based on balls. They get top quality wood, fly. And I'm not talking about balls that are squared up, but balls that you just kind of miss a little bit, right? You don't totally smoke them. They go 375 feet because you cut them and you launched it at 38 degrees instead of 30 degrees, but they're just going to carry out of the park at the big league level versus at the minor league or college level. So that does play a part in it. Not a, you're not going to go from like 10 to 30 home runs, okay, but you might go from 25 to 30.
Right. If you have any questions, again, email us jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. We do have a listener question, but this was sent to us via our YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube page to watch the show, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. Let me pull it up here. This is from DA, a follow-up from last week. He goes, are there any drills, techniques? This is what DA writes. Are there any drills or techniques that you've seen work to significantly help timing, or is it just a matter of seeing more live at bats? I think it's a combination, but I'll let you, the expert, answer.
Yeah, rhythm, rhythm. And so we do, everybody in the Epstein Online Academy has probably 3 or 4 rhythm drills that I work on, where they're striding a little bit slower. It allows them to hold their balance. When do they start moving? So we work a lot of that to help with timing. The worst part about timing is if you start late. If you start late, then you have to rush, and then that stride ends up being too fast. And if the stride's too fast, then we're having to start our swing a little bit early, meaning we have to start our hands sometimes before our foot hits the ground.
Yeah.
And then we're toast if that pitch is moving a little bit more than we've anticipated, or it's slower than what we've anticipated. So there's nothing wrong with seeing pitches. I start working timing off a tee, which sounds kind of stupid, but it is. We start working on our rhythm and timing and being slow and controlled off a tee. Then we do the same thing off front toss, moving a little bit early. Then we do the same thing off a machine. And if we can time a machine, because that ball always doesn't shoot out the same speed or doesn't go down the chute the same way, you can use one of the long feeders like Sports Attack or Hack Attack, makes like a team feeder. And you can time that one a little bit easier. But, big leaguers just time the ball going in, person putting their hand up, dropping it down the little 6-inch chute, 5-inch chute, and they can control it. So the more you really try to do it off machines, the better off your timing in games will be, because machines are the toughest. So we do a combination of all of that: tee, front toss, machines, live arm, stand-ins, just to find a way to get timing. Because DA, you're right. Without timing, it really doesn't matter how good your swing is; it'll break down. If we're late and rushed, it'll break down. Or if we're early on everything, if we get our foot down too soon, that doesn't really help us either. A lot of times I have players that are late and they try to stride they stride early, like when the pitcher's breaking his hands, meaning their foot's getting down before the ball's released, but then they don't swing and then they're still late. So even though they're getting their foot down early, they'll still be late. So I'm actually doing a freebie. I guess I'll plug this right now on Instagram. So if you go to Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, you got like 3 or 4 days to submit your videos. I'm going to do a free 6-month online membership where you can send me a swing per week for 6 months, and I'll review it and give you drills to work on. So definitely do that, DA, with whoever you're working with. See if you can get them in there. But timing, that's the first thing I'm going to look at. So when I look at game swings, I want to see how long that rhythm is. That's how important it is. I can't tell you what players they were, but I just did 4 players and professional players. And that was the first thing I did with them. That was the first thing we're working on, to make sure that their rhythm is how it normally is and it's consistent. So monitoring that really helps. Timing is, you can have a bad swing, but if you have good timing, you have a chance. If you have a good swing and you have bad timing, it's going to be tough.
Right. One of my 4 pillars of hitting. So again, let's plug that one more time.
So if you just go to at Epstein Hitting on Twitter, You can do it on Instagram as well at Epstein Hitting. And there's a link there to upload your video. It just takes you to the Epstein Hitting website. You type in your name, you upload the video, it goes to me, and then I'll randomly choose. I'm going to do 3 free analysis and then 1 free 6-month membership, which is like a $600 value. So definitely take part in that. The more swings I get in there, the better. And I'll post those back to social media, and I'll email you the analysis as well.
All right, very good. And again, subscribe or visit the Epstein Online Hitting Academy YouTube page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mentioned that in there.
Yep.
All right, very good. Episode 132, bat and hand path. Let's get into our main topic here, bat and hand path. I've always said that a good hand path is there. Well, okay, let's not make this about me for a second.
It's always about you, Jimbo.
My world. No. Let me. Okay. Let's first give the definition. If there's a difference between bat and hand path.
Well, there is. How
Mhm.
your hands work from launch to extension and how your barrel works from launch to extension. There are subtleties that the hands will do to help or hurt your bat path through the zone. So typically, if your hand path is good, your barrel path will be good. If your hands have a little bit of a drop and then you have a correction with the knob of the bat late in the swing, what happens is the barrel does funky stuff through the contact zone, 3 or 4 inches before contact, 3 or 4 inches after contact. So your hand path really is the key. You can't have a good barrel path if your hand path is bad. It's going to mirror itself. So what I always do when I'm breaking down swings is I'll chart the hand path. How do your hands work from launch to contact? Do they go down 3 inches and then up 6 inches, or do they go down 1 inch and then up 1 inch? What is your hand path? And what happens is the barrel will mirror that, say, a foot lower, okay, or 2 feet lower. It'll mirror the same exact path through the hitting zone. So if you're doing funky stuff with your hands, they drop and then boom, you yank them back up, then your barrel is going to drop and then it's going to be too steep out in front. So hand path is totally crucial. And it's where the old saying, short to it, long through it, came from. I don't know why that is the essence of hitting, people, and consistency is if you are short to the ball, short to the pitch plane, the ball coming in, and then you stay through that pitch plane, you're golden. Okay. But if you get long early and your barrel starts to decelerate by the time it gets to your front foot, that doesn't work. Then you're on plane for a short amount, like people that are trying to be on plane at their back knee or their back hip. Like you don't want to hit the ball there. You're not, your barrel's going to be so far below your hands, you're just going to slice it the other way or slice it foul or probably miss it. So if your hand path is incorrect and you do something, like I said, funky early, and it's very easy, just watch the big leaguers, for crying out loud. It's not that difficult. Just watch their hand path, chart their hand path. Big leaguers, how did it work on this pitch that they hit a line drive at 25 degrees? That's what we want to do. And that's where we came from. My dad taught me that, like when we were using VHS. Copy the big leaguers is what Ted told him. Copy the great players, they'll tell you what to do, right? And that's been exactly what I've done, and I still do to this day. I pull videos of the best players in baseball. I figure out what they do. They might have different subtleties in their rhythm and their timing, but for the most part, hand paths are pretty similar. There might be some variation on guys that hit for lower averages and hit more home runs, but for the most part, that first like 4 to 6 inches from launch to when they start to rotate, it's pretty much identical.
Yeah. Also, too, another thing to bring up with the hand path, and this is something that always bothers me and bugs me, and something I notice when watching amateur hitters. The hands, when they're coming from launch or getting from launch to contact, the hands are drifting away from that back shoulder and it's creating a very large space between the hands and the shoulder. And that to me is an errant bat path and an errant hand path, vice versa, because bad hand path, is he going to equal that
Yep.
bad hand, whatever. Bad
Yes,
path.
bad.
A lot of
swing
paths
plane
today. Yeah.
So you're right, Jim. So I'm creating is what I'm doing this winter, people. I'm creating an online curriculum, if you will, for parents and for younger coaches, because once you get to 16, that kid's probably got a decent swing, otherwise he's not playing anymore. Okay. It means you can make tweaks at that age, but there are so many players from 8 to 14 that unfortunately don't get the right information at a young age and they
Mhm.
quit. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why baseball isn't growing as fast as it should be, as much as other sports during that age group. So I'm trying to create a step-by-step approach. How do we help our kids? Yeah, how do we help? I was, I'll use my own kid as an example, because I was talking to her this morning about it. She's a right-handed thrower and a left-handed hitter, and she said, "How did I end up hitting left-handed, Dad? Like what was the process there?" I said, "Well, when you wanted to swing left-handed when you were little, and the first thing we swung was a golf club,
Yeah.
and you like to play golf left-handed, so we bought some, little kid golf clubs, and you swung a little bit, and then all of a sudden it was like, hey, let's try right-handed, and you were better right-handed. And then 3 years later, you decided to play softball. Softball wasn't the first, and we tried it again, and we tried to have you hit right-handed, and it looked funny. So I put you on the left side, and all of a sudden, like, you didn't have any bad habits. Yeah, you didn't have a golf swing from the left side. Your hands didn't drop. So I put the bat on your shoulder, and that's what we did for 3 years. I put the bat on her shoulder. I had her hands in the right position. I had her armpit open. I had her front shoulder down. And she never had, now she's got other issues, don't get me wrong. She doesn't extend very well because she's not super strong yet. And sometimes her lead arm collapses. But what doesn't she have? Exactly what you talked about, Jim. She doesn't separate her arms and over rotate her body, which is what we'll see. And that's why I want to get as many videos as I can from people out there that aren't part of the academy. Those of you that are in the academy are already locked in with that stuff. But just to show the amount of young players that have this issue. If I do a camp for a team of 10-year-olds, or I'll go work with the team for a couple hours, they all have the same issue. And if we can get all the coaches around the country, or at least the leagues, on board of, hey, let's start with these basic drills to fix this one problem, which is exactly what Jim said. The player starts to rotate and they leave their hands behind.
Mhm.
Okay. Part of the reason is they're flexible and not very strong. The other part is they're not taught to do the move correctly. And so as soon as the shoulders start to accelerate and the hands do not come with them, it causes drag, it causes armbar, and it causes casting. What do the hands do? They typically go down and back. And once they get stuck down and back, what do? They have to come up, and then a player will flip their wrist. So everything with hitting is cause and effect. If we have 2 or 3 issues with our swing, a lot of times I can fix the first one. I can get the first issue fixed, and all of a sudden the ones that trail it will be better because they're not compensation moves. So I don't know where we got to, but Jim, yes, you're
How hard
right.
is it to fix a bat and a hand path as an
It's
instructor?
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
So what do young kids have to do without giving away too much information? Again, I'm sure there's a lot of drills in the drill library on
Yeah, they
Epstein's
have to
Online
go
Hitting
to
Academy.
epsteinhitting.com and figure it
What
out.
is
No,
a
I'm just kidding.
what's a quick fix? Like here, like boxers, they like to do like shadow boxing, right? At
Yeah,
home. Just
there is
no
there
bag.
isn't a
What's a
quick
quick
fix.
fix at home?
Yeah, unfortunately, what it is it's a step-by-step process
Mhm.
with increased stress moves. So I set them up with their bat on their shoulder and their hands in the right spot and their elbows in the right spot. And we take away, a lot of the lower body. So if you have them, if you're trying to fix this and they have a big leg kick and a weight shift, and like that's not going to work. So it's this is the first sentence I give when people do certification. I always ask them, why are you here? Why did you fly all the way here from Florida or New England or Alaska or California? Why are you here sitting in a room with these other yahoos that are trying to learn about hitting? And every one of them say, because somebody told us to come here because it works. And that's what we've prided ourselves on. It works. It's not information, it's how you apply the information. It's the approach of getting a player from here to here to here along the path, not just knowing what it is. I mean, you could sit and watch YouTube all day long and be like, "Oh, I need the players' hands to go from here to here." But how do we get them there? How do we teach them there? That's where experience and wisdom comes in. So, we start it at we crawl, I guess is the best way to say it, and then eventually we run, and we don't skip steps in between. It's a methodical approach that some players can fix in two weeks. And I'm talking about severe cases. Like if they don't fix it, they're going to play another sport because it's not going to be fun. So sometimes it's 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes it's 2 to 3 months, and sometimes it's a year. And that's okay because you're 8 or 9 years old, right? If you start early, if you start at 10, I have so many kids in the academy that are like 9 years old where before I would never even be, I'd be like, look, just let them have fun, let them play. Now I say that to like 5-year-olds, but at 8 or 9, I'm amazed at how diligent these kids are and their parents are of doing their drills. And I have a couple kids that they're, like I said, they're 9 years old. I know exactly what they're going to look like when they're 16. They're going to have the same damn swing, maybe with a little bit, different rhythm, and they're going to be they're going to be bigger and they're going to be stronger, and all these line drives they're peppering around the 10-year-old field are going to be off the wall. Like, I can't wait. And I used to say that before. A lot of the players I work with now are in college. Some are done. A lot of the players I worked with have kids. They, they have real careers. They're Jim, right? They're real people. But it's so
I am
fun
real
to
for
to
the
watch, where they go. And for those
yeah.
of you that are in the online academy, I know a lot of you guys listen to this, but the little kid, that does I'm updating all those drills this winter too, with the same drills. I mean, maybe we'll add a few new ones, but I'm going to reshoot them with, maybe a different player or myself. But that little kid in all those videos, you know, is playing at Harvard. He was a starting catcher yesterday and went 2 for 4. Hopefully he continues to go 2 for 4 today after I put all this pressure on him. But that's what it takes. He started at 10, 11 years old and he worked, right? And if you have the moves and you work hard, you're going to maximize your career. I don't care what that career is. That career could be 12U, it could be 14U, it could be high school, it could be Division 3, it could be the big leagues. I don't know what it is, but you never want to look back at your life and say, what if? What if I didn't fix that move? I sure was athletic. And I have kids in the academy, players in the academy, some high school kids that are so athletic. They're so big and strong, but they don't put in the work to change. Like, there's one kid that I can see because I saw his video, and he doesn't do the drills enough, and he just sends in game swings, and he is so physical and strong and athletic. He's probably like 15, but his swing plane hasn't changed because he doesn't put in the work. And it doesn't matter how athletic you are. If you don't put in the work, it doesn't matter. Even if the work is wrong. I mean, this isn't just hitting work. It could be school work. It could be, if you don't do your drills, then that tells me you probably don't do your homework like you should. Probably tells you don't clean your room like
Okay, I
you
got to
should.
stop you there. I got to stop you. Hold on. Me personally, actually, number one, I am a real person. Popular contrary belief. I'm not some AI generated. You see, there's a website. I shouldn't be saying this, because you're going to find a new co-host.
You've been
You can find. Yeah, I've been replaced by AI. There's a website where you could actually generate an AI video of somebody basically acting as the talent, quote unquote,
Wow.
for your video. Yeah. I saw it on Instagram the other day. I'm like, oh, well, there goes
That's
the Lab
real.
Epstein hitting podcast. And two
Finally,
generated
we'll get some
AI.
good questions.
Yeah. That's number one. Number two, I do have to push back on something. There are a lot of kids out there, and you're looking at them, one of them included, who would rather do his hitting drills or shoot basketball or shoot hoops or whatever, or do his running drills or work out than do his schoolwork. And I got to tell you, I don't recommend it, but it worked out well for me. I'm a college graduate, and I had a pretty good GPA.
Is that an accredited university?
Yeah.
No, but you did,
Yeah.
Jim. Like, you did your work. You did your SAT work.
Dick
Like,
you.
huh? Yeah.
Dick
No,
you.
but what is your room? Are you a clean person? Are you
Are you asking me? Let me
a
look
very
around.
organized? Like, if I were to look in your closet,
So, like, this
would I be
podcast has
disgusted?
gone through many iterations of rooms.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much at the final room, although that may change too. I could fix the other room around, which is also very clean. I'm very clean. I
Yeah.
don't make my bed. That's one thing.
Huh,
But
interesting.
the closet is very, very clean.
Yeah,
The
organized.
closet is actually very OCD organized. I have,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Okay,
And
so
there's
that makes sense with
yeah,
your
I'm
work
pretty
ethic.
clean. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
You're just not a
Yeah.
school guy.
No, who is?
How you do one thing is how you do everything, right, Jim?
Not true. I didn't put as much effort into my homework.
Hmm.
Although I did a little bit more in college, but in high school, Yeah, right. Yeah, doing homework. Get out of here. I'm in the batting cage. I'm playing basketball.
I do like that kind of, but make sure you're eligible.
I, again, college graduate.
Way to get us off topic, Jim.
I didn't get anybody.
Now I'm
I'm
gonna
just.
find
I had to.
the AI. Where do I type that in?
I
AI
don't, you know what? I got to
podcast
send you the
host.
website. Somebody probably knows out there listening. Bat and hand path. We did this episode previously, way back when in the beginning, and we're
Mhm.
just circling back. And if there's one thing with bat and hand path that really never changes. If you don't have a good hand path, you're not going to have a good bat path. You know, there's
Mhm.
things that hitting that evolves. You know, with new elements that come into the game, i.e., the pitch clock, or I don't know, whatever. But I wouldn't say is that one of my absolutes. I can't remember now, but I would tell you this much: that if you don't have a good hand path, you're not going to have a good bat path. I don't care what hitting instructor tells you what. Every hitter that I see, we talked about Manny Machado earlier with that starting down the count 0-1. That guy
Yeah.
has one of the best hand paths you will
Yep.
ever see. When Bryce Harper is going wrong, his hand path is off.
Yeah.
When he's going right, his hand path is nearly perfect.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And Trout, same thing. They all have a great hand path and in essence have a great bat path. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it all fits in. Again, we measure hand path not during rhythm. If you have a hitch, that has nothing to do with hand path. You know, Barry Bonds had a great hand path, my goodness, but he had a big hitch, right? So the hitch isn't part of that. It's from launch to extension. You know, what are you doing once your front foot lands? Do you have your hands high like Craig Counsell used to have his hands super high and he would bring them down? Most guys have them low, they'll bounce them, have a hitch, back up to launch. So most guys all fit into that window. You know, again, when I'm doing my analysis with big leaguers, you know, their top hand is typically from their ear to their cheek, right? It doesn't matter how it gets there. It matters when it gets there. If it gets there after their foot comes down, bad. If it gets there before, that's fine. Okay. But it's when we launch our swing, when our front foot hits the ground and our legs start to kick in, where are our hands? That's checkpoint number one for me with every video. If it's a big leaguer, if it's an international player, if it's a 9-year-old, that's the first stop on the video analysis. Are we getting there correctly? Is the position correct? How long did it take us to get there?
Mhm.
Okay. And when did we start the process of getting there? Okay. We haven't even swung yet. But if something is wrong in that first stage, it's going to be hard to have a good hand path because we're catching up. We're
Right.
trying to cheat now to get our barrel to the ball. And if we do that, usually the arms have to kick in early. And that's when the issues that Jim talked about, where we get that separation, the back shoulder starts to turn, but the hands are pushing back or out. That's typically because our hands are trying to go before our body. And that's a big issue with younger players.
Well, great episode this week. Episode 132, Bat and Hand Path. And again, if you have any questions, email us jimbopodcast21 at gmail.com. Next week, we will not be having a show. I'm sorry. Another week that we're missing. Well, we've given you 132 episodes, so we're going to have to wait one more week for episode 133. I'm pulling a TB12 and I'm getting out of town for the weekend. By TB12, I mean Tom Brady, the GOAT, greatest of all time. Don't tell me Joe Montana either. If you tell me Joe Montana is the greatest of all time, I'm just going to ignore you because he's not. Opening up too early, teachable moments, Jeff McNeil hitting breakdown. We've got a lot of great topics coming up this
Mhm.
year, so stick with us. And for our newer listeners, if you don't know what we are, we talk about hitting. We dissect hitting a baseball or a softball every week, and we enjoy doing it. And we talk some baseball as well and some other things and some life stuff. So
And
stick with us.
barbecue.
Right. Follow us at Jim Tara on social media, Twitter, Instagram, at Epstein Hitting on Twitter and Instagram. I marinated a great grass-fed steak the other day.
Ugh.
Oh my God. It was so fucking good.
Well, grass fed, you need to marinate a little bit
Oh,
because there's
it was,
not enough fat in grass fed. It's
well, it's
too
like
healthy.
London broil. You need to
Oh, yeah, you need to
marinate London
marinate that for
broil.
sure.
But I marinated that.
Good work, Jim.
I
You're
know,
glowing
man.
because of it.
I know, man. That's actually the ring light. All right. So again, follow us and subscribe to the YouTube page, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page, and we will talk to you next time.